Through faith in Jesus, God gives us a new life. And if something is alive, there have to be life signs. Just goes without saying, just about. That new life that we have in Jesus includes things, James has reminded us in his letter in the New Testament. It includes things like a right response to all the different kinds of trials in our life. Instead of becoming bitter or overwhelmed or giving up or angry, instead we ask God for a wisdom to respond in the right way that produces even greater faith. It also, life signs include giving mercy freely, even when it seems like we have lost everything else, friends and job and everything else, we still give freely without favoritism. Those life signs include speaking words that bless people, build them up, rather than cause harm, even when we are frustrated and irritated. The life signs include a humility that doesn't make assumptions about people's motives or make assumptions about the plans that I'm going to do, the things I can accomplish. Rather, it trusts God and submits to His will. It's the life signs of using our wealth to help other people and also being patient, waiting for God's justice in His right time. And all these things together. But what if you've blown it? What if what I've described has not been you? What if you haven't put faith into action like Jesus wanted? Can you come back? Are you, as James says, could be your faith is dead? Are you a lost cause? Do you think God has written you off? No, He hasn't. In our time of worship, even so far today, reminded of the things that you struggle with and you fight against, God says, give them to me and I will replace them with something else. He's so wonderful. He can do that. There is help. There is hope. In fact, James writes this, is anyone among you in trouble? Then let him pray. Is anyone happy? Let them sing songs of praise. Prayer, in fact, is mentioned in every sentence in this paragraph that James writes. You see, our first response needs to be to pray. Our first response should always be to God. But that's not always true, is it? Sometimes our first response is to get angry. Sometimes if we're in trouble, it's to run to some other people for comfort. Or maybe it's just to grit our teeth and pull ourselves up and get on with it and make it happen. But if it's the happiest day of your life, you should be so madly in love with God that you have to say something to Him first. Because that's just how it works in life. When you're so in love with someone, you want to go tell them first before anybody else. They need to know. They need to hear. If you've got bad news, you want to tell them first. When James says, is anyone among you in trouble? It makes you think of even the very first part of his letter that he wrote, of all the many kinds of trials. Yeah, I'm in trouble. He says, if you respond the wrong way, if you in fact, where you run to first is not God, it can result in a temptation leading to sin and leading to ruin. But you see, God intended the trial that you're going through right now to deepen your faith, to make it stronger, to make it last. So what do? He says you got to run to Him first. God, I need wisdom. I need to know how to respond. First response, ask Him. Or maybe you've been the victim of injustice. Maybe you're suffering in something. James said, remember the prophets and their suffering. Remember even Job, the economic problem, the illness that he had, the death of family. So what's your first response? Your first response needs to be to tell the one that you love what's happening, how you're feeling. The point that James makes is that God needs to be our first love, the center, the core of our lives, if we really are alive. So, you say, I'm going through a hard time. I got to come before Him, before anybody else. Maybe that will involve asking Him to remove the trial. But I tend to think more in terms of even what James says and what Jesus showed us. That instead of so much take the cup away, it's, God, what do you want me to do through this? Because I'll do whatever you say, whatever you have for me. How do I keep from angry words? How do I keep from resentment? How do I keep from the selfishness that so often I seem to fall into? How do I keep giving mercy to people when they don't deserve it? How do I keep caring for someone? How do I forgive when really I don't think they deserve it, but how do I forgive? How do I trust you? If things are great, I should be bursting out in praise immediately to God because I know it all came from Him. And when I mean great, I don't mean necessarily that all the circumstances are good. But what I mean is this amazing kind of peace that He can give despite the situation I'm in. It's amazing. So James says, you're doing well? Well, there should be a song of praise that is just a natural part of your life because it all came from Him. So often He's not our first response. So I'm asking you right now, look at your own life. Is He the first love of your life? See, James is not describing the gift of life as a to-do list. God never says that, a to-do list. It's about a deep, deep relationship with God. It's about knowing Him and that everything about my life revolves around Him. So if I'm cheerful, He's the first one I'm going to run to and I'm going to sing praise to. And if I'm suffering, He's the first one that I'm going to talk to before anybody else. Do you believe these things? Do you? Then we need to spend time daily in His Word, listening to Him. And we need to regularly, throughout the day in our lives, in prayer, tell Him, run to Him in prayer. Because our first response needs to be to go to Him. And not just say, yes, I know these things, but to actually do it. And if we're not doing it, something is wrong. Where's the life signs? For everything in my life, I got to go to Him. You say, this is tough right now. What am I supposed to do? I'll tell you. I got to go to Him. You got to go to Him. You got to go to His presence. Many believers struggle. And the wonderful thing, part of God not leaving us alone, not abandoning us, is that the rest of the family, believers in Jesus, have an opportunity and a responsibility to come alongside and to do something that can make an eternal difference. This is what James writes. Is anyone among you sick? Let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well. The Lord will raise them up. If they have sinned, they will be forgiven. See, what God is saying here is that we together are part of God's rescue plan. You are part of God's rescue plan for somebody who's struggling. There are two different words that James uses here for sickness. And it includes an actual physical sickness. That's part of what he means. There's maybe a disease or something wrong, a sickness. But it also, those words can mean a spiritual weakness, a weariness in your soul, in your heart. And James seems to be making a connection here between sickness and sin. Yeah, he talks about confessing your sin. A connection between sickness and sin. Sickness is not necessarily a result of sin. Job's friends, they made that connection. They said, oh, whenever you're sick, it's because there's some sin in your life. They were wrong. Jesus' disciples kind of thought the same thing, and they saw a man born blind. Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents? And Jesus said, no. No one sinned here. It's God's going to display his glory through this situation. So sickness is not always the result of sin, but listen up. It can be. It can be. When God is disciplining for disobedience, it needs to get your attention through sickness. You see, there were Corinthian believers who were turning the fellowship meal and the Lord's Supper, when they come together for worship, they were turning it into a selfish party. And so God brought a physical discipline on many of the people in that church. In fact, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 30, that is why many of you are weak and sick, and some have even died. God's discipline, you see, because of sin. The writer to the Hebrews in the New Testament also makes this connection between sickness and sin, or weakness, even the weakness, the weariness of your spirit and your soul. And he writes, consider Jesus, him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary. Same word James uses. So that you will not grow weary and lose heart. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. So see, James, I think, has in mind here believers who did not choose to put their faith into action. Instead, they chose for some reason to fulfill their own desires, to say, I can't handle this, I got to do this, I got to do that, or they become angry with the people and irritable and frustrated, and their life is coming apart at the seams. And God brings a physical discipline, a sickness, to get their attention. I know a young man, in fact, who said, I want to do this. I know God disapproves of it, but I'm going to do this. And he went ahead and did it, and God brought discipline in his life. And at first, in talking to him, at first he said, no, everything's okay. I'm going for this. And I know it's not what God likes, but he'll excuse it somehow. And this is what I'm going to do. I told him what's probably going to be coming here, God's discipline. And soon, sure enough, he said, man, something's wrong. I'm feeling miserable. I'm losing my appetite. I'm just feeling almost like I got a fever all the time. And I am so empty and feeling lost, and it's like a panic attack. God was bringing something to get his attention. And he realized it eventually. Friends, evaluate your life right now. Evaluate your love right now. Could this be what God is doing in you, in your life? Has God brought something physical to get your attention about some sin? If so, maybe you're wondering, so what do I do? Is there help? Yeah, there is. You see, other believers are part of God's rescue plan. James describes the elders, the leaders in the church. He says what you need to do is you need to gather together the leaders to pray. You see, first it's your act of faith. You saying, I really believe what God says, and so I'm going to call the elders together. The oil that was described here as they come and pray and anoint with oil, the oil is not medicine here. Oil wasn't even used for medicine for everything back then. But rather it's a physical symbol that you're being set apart for God's special attention and care. Because, see, it's not the oil that heals, it's the prayer in faith that heals. You say, well, how much faith do you need? See, sometimes making an excuse. Well, God didn't come through this time because you didn't have enough faith. Well, the elders didn't have enough faith, I guess, in this case. Elders didn't have faith, so God didn't heal. So how much faith do you really need? Jesus said, if you have even the smallest amount of faith, you could say to Mount Everest, into the sea, and away it goes, if it were God's will, you see. Faith in the sovereignty of the Lord is what we're talking about here. And faith in His ability of the one who is able to do, and sometimes He chooses to leave someone sick. But right here, there's a promise being made, a promise of healing that is based on God's will. And it's not waiting for the resurrection. You know, in the resurrection, we're all going to be healed. You don't need elders praying in order to have the resurrection come. It's going to come. Jesus already made sure of that. We're talking about something right now. And here's, you need to understand, it is always God's will to forgive sin that is confessed. And it is always His will to remove a discipline when it's no longer needed. There's the promise. And it's not just the elders who are part of God's rescue plan. James goes on to say, therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Elijah was a human being, even as we are. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. Again he prayed, and the heavens gave rain, the earth produced its crops. See, all the believers, the whole family of the church are rescuers. He says to one another, the family of believers, we are to be regularly involved with confession and prayer. Because the power to heal is not in the elders, but in prayer. And all believers have the privilege and the responsibility, because it's the great power of prayer because of God at work. The power even to forgive and to heal. James says, it's possible. You can do it. You have the responsibility. See, Elijah was like us. You say, how? Oh, come on. What have you been eating? You're crazy. Elijah, like us? I mean, the guy who called fire down from heaven, the guy who did miracles, the guy who was so bold, he's not like me. Yeah, he is. A nature just like you, just like me. He's no different. He's not a Superman. He prayed, things happened. He's got nothing on you and me. Nothing that we don't have as believers in Jesus. In fact, we have an advantage over him because the Holy Spirit, God's Spirit, permanently indwells us. Jesus already died, already rose again. The Spirit's already been given out. Elijah was way before that. We have new life. And we tend to look at people in the Bible as different from us, don't we? I mean, admit it. You look at King David and you say, I'm no King David. Look at Moses and forget that Ben-Hur played the part. But, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Charlton Heston. You say, I'm no Moses. I could never do what Moses did. I'm no Elijah. The verse says, God says, yes, you are. God says, yes, you are. He was a human being like you. And here I am praying in the same way Elijah did. He has nothing on me, you see. David has nothing on me. Moses has nothing on me because it's about God. It's about what God is able to do. See, we put these people on a pedestal as if their experience, their relationship with God is unattainable by the rest of us. But they were no different than us. It's about relationship. It's about being alive in Jesus. Do you believe that you have the same intimacy with God as David or Moses? Do you believe that God can respond to your prayers just like he did to Elijah's? He says he will. And because of that, James concludes, my brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. He says, take action. Take action. Intervene on behalf of a fellow believer who is having trouble believing God right now, who's having trouble obeying God right now. Step in and intervene on their behalf, because there's the power of prayer and you have it right in your hands. Truth needs to be done, not just believed. You see, death is the final destination of sin's path, so we need to be desperate about it right now. We need to act now with an urgency and a determination, because God is ready to forgive and to heal. Do you understand this? If you help someone turn from their sin and come back to God, you are helping to save them from a whole world of hurt. Prayer is powerful because of God. And here's an even greater miracle than stopping and starting rain. God can use you to turn someone back to Him. A huge miracle that God can actually use you to change someone's eternal destiny. Do you believe that? I mean, do you really believe that enough, that the life that you have is going to show itself? That your prayers can have that much power, and that God can use you? Do you believe that? I mean, what an amazing thought, that you can actually have an impact on someone's eternal destiny. So do you believe these words? This is about a living faith, that God wants us to go and act. It's where you read it and you say, yes, Lord, yes, I want you to do that through me, in me. I am willing to go and take a step of faith. I need to talk to someone. I know that. I need to talk to someone right now. And you can use me to bring them back to you. So friends, act on these words if you believe them, because this is a living faith. This is our first response. I want to know you, Lord. I love you. And I want you to be the very first love of my life. Anything that happens, you see, is about Him. So what do you say? I'm going to Him. There'll be people in this back corner who would love to pray with you and for you. Little white badges, you can identify them. Let me pray for you right now. My Father, right now you are hearing, and you are ready to answer, because you already know what is that good and perfect will. You know exactly what is needed. And though the timing of it, your answer may not be even what I would be asking for, you're going to answer because it's who you are. And so, Father, I pray on behalf of the people here today. I ask that those who have been watching you from a distance, or maybe have just been involved in the to-do lists of Christianity in the church, but do not have a relationship with you, I'm asking, Father, that you will do whatever it takes and move whoever is needed into their life to bring them face to face with the truth. Jesus is who he said he is. He died, he rose, he's coming back. Will you believe in him and receive him? Bring that person, that message to that individual and open their heart, Father, to hear and believe. And I pray for my brothers and sisters in Christ, Father. This is what I ask. I ask that they may love you above all else. That you will be our first response. And that in that first response, when we see someone else who struggles even with doubt or obedience, we won't pass them by, but we'll start praying. And we'll get involved. Father, let there be healing, confession of sin among us, forgiveness among us, life signs among us. In Jesus' name.